Please, who's ever in the sanctuary, come around the other side. Go to the back to this. I forgot to turn on the back. Come on in. Have a seat. Get a cup of coffee, café con leche. All right, I'm not in the middle. All righty. Welcome to the City Gate Messianic Bible Study. We're going to be starting a Bible study with some prayer. And so let's start off with a word of prayer. Thank you, Lord, for your blessings today. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to share about responsibility and what being the part of the firstborn. Let us learn from your word today, but most of all, let us grow in understanding. In your name, Yeshua. This is your flock, Yeshua. In your name, Yeshua. And everybody said, Amen. Let's go get a blessing. Turn to the book of Bereshit, Genesis.
Vamos al libro de Génesis,
Chapter 25.
capítulo 25.
This is the City Gate Messianic Bible Study.
Este es el estudio bíblico mesiánico de la Puerta de la Ciudad.
We're going to be studying Parasha number 6.
Vamos a estudiar la Parasha número 6.
It is called Tol'dot or Tol'dot.
Se titula Tol'dot o Tol'dot.
It means generations.
Significa generaciones.
Going on to the next slide.
La próxima diapositiva.
The main concept of this Parasha number 6 that we're going to be studying tonight
El concepto principal de Parasha número 6, de la cual vamos a estar estudiando esta tarde,
is responsibility and despised.
es responsabilidad y despreciado.
Okay. In the tech center, can you raise my volume up a little bit?
Will do.
Okay. The main concept of this parasha
El concepto principal de este Parasha
is responsibility and the word despise.
es responsabilidad y la palabra despreciado.
Going on to the next slide.
En la próxima diapositiva.
This is the sixth parasha, that means the sixth portion.
Esta es la sexta Parasha, que significa la sexta porción.
When you say parasha or parashot or parash,
Cuando dices Parasha, Parashot o Parasha o Parasha o
parasha,
Parash,
Parash,
Parash, Parasha o
and
Parashah
parashot.
o Parashot es sección de la,
It's a portion of the Torah.
es una porción de la Torah.
And this is in the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 25, verse 19 through chapter 28, verse 9.
Y esto se encuentra en Bereshit, en Génesis capítulo 25, desde versículo 19 al capítulo 28, versículo 9.
In this particular study, and there's many other studies on our website,
En este estudio en particular, y hay muchos más estudios en nuestro sitio web,
where we go through the whole parasha.
a donde estudiamos el Parashá completo.
But what we're doing with this cycle that we're doing this time
Pero lo que vamos a hacer con este ciclo que estamos estudiando esta vez
is,
The volume's very low, Adriana says.
yeah, you just turn. Let me just talk to the tech center.
Yeah, she just
Text
hit me just now.
The tech center, did you raise the volume up going out to YouTube? Jose, did you raise the volume up? He said he did, so
Okay.
give it a minute.
All right.
Okay. This cycle around that we're doing
Este ciclo ahora que estamos estudiando,
is what I'm doing is picking a word or a concept
lo que estoy haciendo ahora es tomando una palabra o un concepto
that you need to understand
que,
for the rest of the portion.
que necesitas entender para el resto de la porción.
And this is, if we go back a slide,
Y si regresamos una diapositiva,
is responsibility
es responsabilidad
and the concept of despising something.
y el concepto de despreciar algo.
Because once you understand these two concepts,
Que cuando tú entiendas estos dos conceptos,
then you're going to be able to understand the rest of those chapters.
entonces vas a poder entender el resto de los capítulos.
Because if you don't understand despising something
Porque si no entiendes el despreciar algo
or your responsibility,
o tu responsabilidad,
then you don't understand why you're digging for water.
entonces no entiendes por qué estás excavando para obtener agua.
You don't understand what's going on in the land of Israel today because you don't understand these two concepts.
Entonces no entiendes lo que está sucediendo en la tierra de Israel hoy en día porque no entiendes estos dos conceptos.
All right, let's just check. Denise, text me to see if the sound is okay now. All right, going back to, so we're in Genesis 25, Bereshit 25, 19 to 20, chapter 28.
Estamos en Génesis capítulo 25, 19 hasta el capítulo 28, versículo 9.
And there's a lot of stuff in those couple of chapters.
Y en esos par de capítulos hay muchas cosas.
All right, let's go on to the next slide.
Ya vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now, what I've been doing, at least with this particular cycle,
Lo que estoy haciendo, por lo menos con este ciclo en particular,
I know we're not on the cycle that the world is on,
yo sé que no estamos en el mismo ciclo en que están los demás, lo que está en el resto del mundo.
but we're just we're doing one parasha each week
Lo que estamos haciendo es un parasha por semana,
in the Bible study. So we finished what was that, Galatians or Ephesians?
Ephesians,
Ephesians.
que habíamos terminado el estudio de Efesios.
So we're going to do another. We're going to do this type of study through the spring holy days.
Vamos a hacer esta clase de estudio hasta los días festivos de la primavera
Then we're going to go to Romans for a couple of months.
y después vamos a estudiar el libro de Romanos por un par de meses.
You know, because there's a lot of studies on the web. Everybody does a parasha.
Hay muchos estudios en el internet, todo hacen un estudio de la parasha.
Okay, so we're going to bounce back and forth between the parasha and the Brit Hadashah.
So vamos a estar intercambiando entre la parasha y el Brit Hadashah, el Nuevo
I
Testamento.
recommend everybody going to our website.
Recomiendo que todos visiten nuestro sitio web.
There are now over 3,000 teachings on our website.
Hay ahora 3,000 enseñanzas en nuestra página web.
And each week I put up a new teaching on the whole parasha
Y cada semana pongo una nueva enseñanza sobre el parasha completo,
so that you can always, you know, get a good understanding of what the basis is.
para que puedas recibir un entendimiento del fundamento, de la base.
So let's go over the summary.
Vamos a repasar el parasha.
In this parasha, in those chapters that we said that the whole parasha is in,
En estos capítulos de la parasha,
you have Yitz'chak and Ishmael's reunion.
en la reunión de Yitz'chak, de los hermanos Yitz'chak y Ismael.
Because remember, Ishmael was sent away.
Acuérdate que despidieron a Ismael.
Now you can spend a couple of months just studying that whole
Tú
situation
puedes pasar un par de meses estudiando esa situación.
because it is very important
porque es bien importante,
because it is a prophetic understanding of the end of days,
porque es un entendimiento profético de los últimos días,
where Yitz'chak and Ishmael, the two sons of Abraham,
a donde Yitz'chak y Ismael, los dos hijos de Abraham,
they come back to bury their father.
ellos regresan a enterrar a su padre.
And right now in the land of
Y
Israel
ahora en la tierra de Israel
and in the Gaza Strip,
y en la franja de Gaza,
you have the sons of Yitz'chak
tiene los hijos de Yitz'chak
or
o
Yaakov
Jacob
and the children of Ishmael.
y los hijos de Ismael.
Okay, and the brothers are still fighting to this day.
Los hermanos están batallando hasta el día de hoy.
And when they buried their father Abraham,
Y cuando enterraron a su padre Abraham,
that would be the last time that you would see the two brothers together.
eso sería la última vez que se ven los dos hermanos juntos.
Do you need to switch batteries? Okay, hold on one second, everybody. Hi, y'all. How you doing? Is the sound okay on your end?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're just switching batteries. Okay. All right, so Yitz'chak and Ishmael, that would be the last time they see each other.
Sería la última vez que Yitz'chak y Ismael se ven,
And that foreshadows the Messianic age.
y eso predice la era mesiánica.
All right, let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now, in chapter 25 and 26,
En capítulos 25 y 26
our attention turns over to Yitz'chak. You know, we focus on him
nos enfocamos en Yitz'chak,
and him and Rebekah, or
él,
Rivkah.
él y Rivkah o Rebekah.
And they're happily married for 20 years.
Y están felizmente casados por 20 años.
Now, this is something very much to look at
Y esto es algo que se debe de mirar,
because they're married 20 years and they don't have any children.
porque están casados 20 años y no tienen hijos.
It was quiet in the house.
Había paz en la casa.
It wasn't like the Lara house.
No era como la casa Lara.
Okay. I don't think that house is even quiet. Good thing they don't have neighbors anywhere near them. Okay. But what's
You die when you die.
even you die when you die. They're all sitting around the table. Okay. But one of the lessons that you can learn from that
Una de las lecciones que se puede aprender de esto
is Yitz'chak didn't go find another woman,
es que Yitz'chak no salió a buscar otra mujer.
and Rebekah didn't try to find another handmaid for her husband.
Y Rebeca no trató de buscar una
concubine.
concubina para su esposo.
Where, remember, Abraham was married for a long time,
Acuérdate que Abraham estuvo casado por mucho tiempo
and Sarah got him a concubine.
y Sara le consiguió a él una concubina.
But Yitz'chak does not do that,
Pero Yitz'chak no hace eso.
okay? And it's something very much to look at.
Es algo que se debe de mirar.
See, you know, your children watch their parents.
Tus hijos los hijos velan a los padres.
And Yitz'chak finally prays for his wife after 20 years of not having children.
Después de 20 años de no tener hijos, Yitz'chak finalmente ora por su esposa.
Now, they were having relations,
Tenían relaciones,
but Yitz'chak then prays for Rebekah.
y entonces Yitz'chak ora por Rebekah. Por
And
Rivkah.
God hears the prayers of the righteous person.
Dios escucha las oraciones de la persona justa.
Let me say that again.
Deja repetir eso.
God hears the prayers of the righteous.
Dios escucha las oraciones del justo.
So he doesn't put one baby inside of Rebekah, but twins.
Él no le da una criatura a Rebeca, sino a gemelos o mellizos.
But one of the lessons to learn from these two chapters,
Una de las lecciones que se debe de aprender de estos dos capítulos
it is God, Jehovah, who opens up the womb or closes the womb.
es Dios Jehová quien abre o cierra el vientre.
So don't think that you're too old to have a child.
So no piense que eres muy mayor para tener hijos.
And don't think you're too young. You can always have number 6.
Siempre puede tener el número 6.
Okay. So, now Yitz'chak didn't give up. You die when you die. Could be like the Brady Bunch. Okay. But the thing that is beautiful about this parasha and that thought
Lo lindo de este pensar y de este pensamiento y este parasha
is Yitz'chak didn't give up on his marriage or on God.
es que Yitz'chak no se rindió en su matrimonio ni en Dios.
He trusted in Jehovah's
Él
promises.
confió en las promesas de Jehová.
What a lot of times people do,
Lo que muchas veces la gente hace,
and this is on the slide,
y esto está en la diapositiva,
is we take matters into our own hands.
es que tomamos las situaciones en nuestras manos,
Instead of following God's ordained plans.
en vez de seguir el plan ordenado por Dios.
God is, He's sovereign.
Dios es soberano.
And we need to be patient on the Lord.
Y debemos de ser pacientes esperando en el Señor.
And Yitz'chak was patient.
Y Yitz'chak era paciente.
He didn't take, I got to go find a concubine. I haven't had a kid for 20 years.
Él no tomó la situación en sus propias manos diciendo necesito tener un bebé, me voy a conseguir una concubina.
One thought that you might want to think about.
Algo que quieras pensar.
There's no scripture to fully understand this.
No hay escritura para completamente entender esto.
But maybe he saw the pain in his father's eyes.
Pero tal vez él vio el dolor en los ojos de su padre.
When he had to send Ishmael away.
Cuando tuvo que despedirse de Ismael.
Maybe there was a sadness that Abraham always carried with him.
Tal vez había una tristeza que Abraham siempre cargó con él.
So then when Yitz'chak grows up,
Entonces cuando Yitz'chak ya crece,
now he got married at 40,
él se casó a los 40 años
and he's now 60 years old.
y ahora tiene 60 años.
He was 60 years old when he finally got a child.
Tenía 60 años ya cuando tuvo su primer hijo.
Okay?
Primeros hijos.
But he didn't try to force God's plan.
Él no trató de esforzar el plan de Dios.
He just trusted in God's plan.
Simplemente confió en el plan de Dios.
And that's the hardest thing for most people to do.
Y esto es lo más difícil para muchos hacer.
A lot of people try to move around to try to find God's plan.
Mucha gente se mueven de un lado para otro buscando el plan de Dios.
Okay? So Yitz'chak just waited,
Yitz'chak esperó
and then he prayed for his wife after 20 years.
y oró por su esposa después de 20 años.
And then God heard his prayer.
Y entonces Dios escuchó su petición.
Let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now we're going to give you the chapter breakdown,
Ahora vamos a disectar el capítulo
and then we'll get into the main concept of this parasha.
y vamos a entrar en el concepto principal de este parasha.
In chapter 25,
En el capítulo 25,
verse 19 through 26,
versículos 19 al 26,
Rivkah has twins.
Rivkah da a luz a
That's
gemelos.
Rebekah.
I mean, yeah, Rivkah, Rebekah. What did I say?
I'm just
Oh,
letting everybody else know.
okay. Rivkah es Rebekah.
Okay, she gives birth to twin boys.
Ella da a luz a dos gemelos, varones.
And the two boys are Esav and Ya'akov.
Y los dos varones son Esav o Esaú y Jacob.
So after 20 years of marriage, she finally gets pregnant.
So, después de 20 años de estar casada, finalmente ella se embaraza.
So God kept his promise
Dios mantuvo o guardó su promesa
because he said to Yaakov, to Yitz'chak, that his descendants would be numerous.
porque él le dijo a Yitz'chak que sus descendientes iban a ser muchos.
So always trust God's plan.
Siempre confía en la plan de Dios.
Believe in Messiah Yeshua
En el plan de Dios. Cree en Mesías Yeshua
and follow the Torah.
y sigue la Torah.
No matter what people think of you,
No importa lo que la gente piense de ti,
no matter what people say about you,
no importa lo que digan de ti,
you follow God's plan.
tú sigues el plan de Dios.
And sometimes it gets difficult,
Y a veces se pone difícil,
okay? But always trust God's plan. And Rivkah did, but she was a little crazy.
Siempre confía en el plan de Dios. Rivkah sí, ella también confió, pero ella fue un poquito loca.
Because at the end, she doesn't follow God's plan.
Porque al final ella no sigue el plan de Dios.
At the end of this parasha, she does not follow God's plan.
Al final de este parasha ella no sigue el plan de Dios.
Okay, in the second bullet point,
Y en la segunda nota,
Esav gives Yaakov his birthright in exchange for a bowl of soup.
Esaú le entrega su primogenitura a Jacob por un plato de lentejas.
That's what we're going to be focusing on this parasha.
Eso es en lo que nos vamos a enfocar en este parasha.
Because we're still dealing with this problem today in Eretz Israel.
Porque todavía estamos tratando con este problema en el día de hoy en la tierra de Israel.
And that is chapter 25, verse 27 through 34.
Y ese es el capítulo 25, versículos 27 al 34.
Then in the third point on this slide,
Y en la tercera nota, en esta diapositiva,
King Avimelekh is led to think that Rivkah is Yitz'chak's sister. Now that's the same thing.
el rey Avimelekh cree que Rivkah es la hermana de Yitz'chak.
That's where he's just like his daddy.
Y ahí es donde él salió como su padre.
He's afraid of man.
Él le teme al hombre.
And he does the same thing his father Abraham did.
Y él hizo lo mismo que hizo su padre Abraham.
So in that case, the apple did not fall far from the tree.
So en ese caso, la manzana no cayó muy lejos del árbol.
Okay, it's like, what are you doing? You trusted for 20 years.
¿Qué tú estás haciendo si tú confiaste por 20 años?
And now you're worrying about somebody, you're sort of not telling the truth.
Ahora estás preocupado por el hombre y no estás diciendo la verdad.
And when you don't tell the whole truth,
Y cuando no dices la verdad completa,
then you cause problems for the kingdom.
entonces causas problemas para el reino.
So whatever you do,
So, lo que hagas,
just tell the truth.
haga lo que haga, di la verdad.
I try to tell this to the kids.
Trato de decirle esto a los niños.
And you say, why didn't you tell the truth? I don't know.
Y le pregunto, ¿por qué no dijiste la verdad? Y ellos salen llorando, yo no sé.
Okay, so that happens in chapter 26, verse 1 through 16.
Y eso ocurre en capítulo 26, versículos 1 al 16.
Then the king of Avimelekh finds out that Rivkah is really Yitz'chak's wife.
Y entonces el rey Abimelech se entera que Rivkah es la esposa de Yitz'chak.
How do you think the kingdom looks when you do that?
¿Cómo tú piensas que se ve el reino cuando tú haces eso?
It doesn't look good when you get caught in a half truth.
No se ve muy bien cuando te descubren en una media verdad.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Okay, we're still doing an overview of the parasha. Now we're going to get into the main points.
Todavía estamos haciendo un repaso del parasha. Ahora vamos a entrar a los puntos principales.
Then Yitz'chak plans to bless Esav, his oldest son.
Entonces Yitz'chak planea, tiene en plan para bendecir a su primogénito.
But then Rebekah, I said, Rebekah, Rivkah is her Hebrew name.
Rebekah, pero el nombre hebreo de ella es Rivkah.
She tries to deceive, she does deceive her husband.
Ella engaña a su esposo.
And she has this whole elaborate plan.
Ella tiene un plan bien elaborado
In chapter 27.
en el capítulo 27.
And this is the last time that we're going to hear from Rivkah.
Y esta es la última vez que vamos a escuchar de Rivkah.
When you do something like this, God does not like it.
Cuando tú haces algo así como esto, Dios no le agrada.
Okay, so Yaakov deceives Yitz'chak, his father.
So Jacob engaña a Yitz'chak, su padre.
So Yaakov receives the blessing in chapter 27.
En el capítulo 27, versículos 1 al 29, Jacob recibe la bendición.
Okay, now we're going to look at that this was already known by God.
Vamos a ver que esto ya, Dios sabía de esto.
Okay, then finally in the last bullet point on this slide,
Y en la última nota en esta diapositiva,
Esau threatens to kill Yaakov.
Esaú amenaza a matar a su hermano Jacob.
And Yaakov then runs to Haran,
Y después Jacob huye a la tierra de Haran,
where he's going to have then 2 wives and 2 concubines,
a donde él va a recibir 2 esposas y 2 concubinas.
and spend 21 years away from his family, or
Y-
20 years.
Y estar 20 años alejado de su familia.
And this will be the last time that Yaakov sees his mother.
Esta va a ser la última vez que Jacob ve a su madre.
So the child that you love so much
El hijo a quien amas tanto,
that you try to work out the blessing,
que tratas de trabajar la bendición,
you're now never going to see again
ya no vas a ver más.
because she dies soon thereafter.
Porque no mucho tiempo después de eso ella muere.
Okay, so that's the overview.
Ese es el repaso.
Now let's go to the next slide.
Ahora vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now we're going to work on the main concept.
Ahora vamos a trabajar en el concepto principal.
It's of Tol'dot or Tol'dot, whichever way you want to say it.
Tol'dot o Tol'dot, como quiera que lo quiera decir.
Okay, because there's 2 different ways of saying it.
Hay 2 maneras distintas de decirlo.
All depends if you're Hebrew or Ashkenazi or Sephardic.
Depende si eres Ashkenazi o Sefardí.
Okay, so we're going to go over responsibility,
Entonces vamos a mirar la responsabilidad
and then the concept of being despising something.
y el concepto de despreciar algo.
Going on to next slide.
La próxima diapositiva.
So let's go to chapter 25, Bereshit chapter 25, Genesis chapter 25,
Vamos a Génesis capítulo 25,
verse 22 and 23.
versículos 22 y 23.
Because you need this part to understand the next part.
Porque necesitas esta parte para entender la próxima parte.
And we'll talk about this for a little bit.
Y vamos a hablar sobre esto por un tiempito.
Chapter 25, verse 22 and 23.
Capítulo 25, versículos 22 y 23.
The children fought with each other inside her so much that she said, if it's going to be like this, why go on living? So she went to inquire of Yehovah, who answered her, there are 2 nations in your room. From birth they will be 2 rival peoples. One of these peoples will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Okay? So this is a prophecy.
So esto aquí es una profecía.
We're going to focus on, well, let's start out with verse 22.
Vamos a comenzar con el versículo 22.
The children fought with each other inside her so much that she said, if it's going to be like this, why go on living? So she went and inquired of the Lord. Okay, so she finally gets pregnant after 20 years,
So, finalmente, después de 20 años, ella se embaraza
and she has twins inside of her.
y está embarazada con gemelos.
And she's overreacting just like a pregnant woman would.
Y está sobre reaccionando como una mujer embarazada hace.
I mean, I don't know what it is to be pregnant. No man ever will.
Yo no sé lo que es estar embarazado, ningún hombre lo sabrá.
My wife described when she was first pregnant with our oldest son.
Mi esposa me explicó cuando estaba embarazada con nuestro primer hijo.
I said, what does it feel like?
le pregunté, ¿cómo se siente?
She says, put a goldfish in your mouth,
Ella dijo, pon un pez dorado en tu boca,
a live goldfish.
un pez dorado vivo.
Okay? No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks.
Okay, so I can imagine having 2 babies inside
So,
you.
puedo imaginar tener 2 bebés dentro de ti.
Now, let's look at verse 23.
So, vamos a mirar el versículo 23.
Okay? Jehovah answered her,
Jehová
there are 2 nations in your womb. From birth they will be 2 rival peoples. One of these people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Okay? Now, he doesn't say which will be stronger.
Él no dice cuál de los dos va a ser más fuerte.
Okay, maybe you can think by serving, you're going to be weaker.
Tal vez puedes pensar que al servir vas a ser más débil.
Okay? But he doesn't say that Esau is going to be the stronger.
Él no dice que Esaú va a ser el más fuerte.
He just says that the older will serve the younger.
Él dice que el mayor va a servir al menor.
He doesn't say how.
Él no dice cómo.
That's yet to be determined.
Eso todavía hay que determinarse.
Because our actions, put it this way, prophecy is always going to happen.
La profecía siempre va a ocurrir.
But how it happens, there are usually not so many specifics.
Pero cómo sucede, no hay mucho, no hay mucho específico.
Like Israel would be born modern Israel would be born again in a day.
Que Israel moderno iba a renacer en un día.
But God doesn't say how that's going to occur.
Pero Dios no dice cómo eso va a ocurrir.
So here, when you're looking at this prophecy leading up to the 2 brothers,
Cuando miras esta profecía que nos lleva a los 2 hermanos,
we determine how the prophecy gets done.
nosotros determinamos cómo se cumple la profecía.
You know, maybe it says in verse 23,
Dice en el versículo 23
the older is going to serve the younger.
que el mayor va a servir al menor.
Maybe the younger becomes a good business person.
Tal vez el menor va a ser un buen negociante
And he knows how to raise cattle real good.
y él sabe cómo criar el ganado.
And the older brother, you know, is not as good as a business person.
Y el mayor tal vez no es un buen negociante.
That could be one way he could have served.
Esa puede ser una manera de que él iba a servir.
It didn't have to happen the way it did.
No tuvo que suceder como sucedió.
Because at this point, you know, God knows it's going to happen because he's omnipresent.
Porque en este punto Dios sabía que iba a pasar porque él es omnipresente.
But how you arrive at your destination is sometimes what you do.
Cómo tú llegas a tu destinación depende mucho de lo que tú haces.
God's going to work out his plan in you.
Dios va a obrar su plan en ti.
Some people need to be broken.
Hay aquellos que necesitan ser derrumbados o
Some people need to be,
quebrantados.
some people need to lose everything.
Algunos necesitan perder todo.
Some people need to lose some things.
Algunos necesitan perder algunas cosas.
Some people need to get singed a little fire on the body.
Algunos necesitan quemarse un poquito en el cuerpo.
Or some people just do what God says.
Y hay algunos que simplemente hacen lo que Dios dice.
See, let's read verse 23 again.
Vamos a leer el versículo 23 nuevamente.
Who answered her, there are 2 nations in your womb. From birth they will be rival peoples. One of these people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Okay, so you see in the passage, they're going to be rivals.
So aquí ves en el pasaje que van a ser rivales.
But sometimes rivalry makes people stronger.
Pero a veces la contienda hace que la gente sea más fuerte.
Because you're always trying to outdo your brother or sister.
¿So what?
You're always trying to be
Oh,
better
porque-
than your brother or
porque-
sister.
Porque siempre estás tratando de ser mejor que tu hermano o tu hermana.
So rivalry doesn't have to be something bad.
So, la rivalidad no tiene que ser algo malo,
It could be something good.
puede ser algo bueno.
Okay? So you need that as you go further into the parasha.
Necesitas eso para poder profundizarte más en este parasha.
Okay, everybody understanding that so far?
¿Entienden eso?
Any questions so far?
¿Hay preguntas hasta ahora?
Okay.
¿Hay preguntas?
So here God says, in the womb,
So, Dios está diciendo en el vientre
that the older is going to serve the younger.
que el mayor va a servir al menor.
But he doesn't say how that's going to happen.
Pero él no dice cómo eso va a suceder. And I just have to make a correction. For rivalry, the word in Spanish is rivalidad.
I'll say that in Spanish.
I did.
Okay. Let's go on to the next slide.
La próxima diapositiva.
Now, let's go to verse 25 and 26.
Vamos al versículo 25 y 26.
Let me just get. The first to come out was reddish and covered all over with hair, like a coat. So they named him Esav, completely formed, that is, having hair already. Then his brother emerged with his hand holding Esav's heel, so he's called Ya'akov. He catches by the heel, he surplants. Yitz'chak was 60 years old when she bore them. Okay, so we need this part
So necesitamos esta parte
for this study
para este estudio,
because you need to know that Esav is the one that came out first.
porque necesitas saber que Esaú fue el que nació primero.
He's not older by months or years or years and years.
Él no es mayor a través de los meses o años.
He's older by minutes or however long it takes to get the second kid out of there.
Él es mayor de entre el tiempo que él salió del vientre y de que salió el hermano del vientre.
But what we need to look at is a very important understanding.
Lo que necesitamos mirar es un entendimiento bien importante.
Because biblically, the firstborn, there's a lot to that.
Porque bíblicamente hay mucho en el ser el primogénito.
And a lot of people don't understand this concept.
Y mucha gente no entiende este concepto.
And especially a lot of firstborn sons don't understand that.
Especialmente que muchos primogénitos no entienden eso.
But biblically, it's a concept for Messiah for us to understand about Yeshua, our Messiah.
Bíblicamente es un concepto que tenemos que entender para Yeshua el Mesías.
Because there's a lot why Yeshua had to be the first, why Messiah had to be the firstborn son.
Repeat that again.
There's a biblical importance.
Okay. Hay una importancia bíblica en el por qué Mesías tenía que ser el primogénito.
Why Yeshua didn't have an older brother.
Porque Yeshua no tenía un hermano mayor.
We're not even talking about the virgin birth.
No estamos ni hablando de la virgen, del nacimiento virgen.
Okay? There's a concept that we're going to go over tonight
Hay un concepto que vamos a mirar esta tarde.
about people who honor being firstborn,
Que hay gente que honran ser el primogénito,
what the Bible talks about with being a firstborn,
de lo que la Biblia habla sobre ser el primogénito,
and what you can do if you're a
y
firstborn,
qué puedes hacer si eres un primogénito,
and what gets lost when you disrespect that role.
y qué se pierde cuando le faltas el respeto o desprecias esa posición.
So Esav is a twin
Esaú es un gemelo
with Yaakov.
con Jacob,
They're born pretty much at the same time.
nacen mayor por lo tanto a la misma vez,
But there's something very important about him coming out first,
Pero hay algo bien importante con el que Esaú salió primero.
even if it's only moments ahead of somebody else.
Aunque sea solamente momentos antes del otro.
There's something very important biblically.
Hay algo bien importante bíblicamente.
Let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now hold your place in Genesis chapter and turn to Exodus chapter 13, verse 1.
Mantén tu lugar ahí en Génesis y vamos a Éxodo capítulo 13, versículo 1.
Hold your place in Genesis and turn to Shemot Exodus 13, verse 1 and 2.
Mantén tu lugar en Génesis y vamos al libro de Éxodo capítulo 13, versículos 1 y 2.
13, 1 and 2.
Capítulo 13, versículos 1 y el 2.
Jehovah said to Moshe, set aside for me all the firstborn, whatever is first from the womb among the people of Israel, both of humans and of animals, belongs to me. Okay? Now let's focus on verse 2 again.
Vamos a enfocarnos en el versículo 2.
This is a very important concept and why Messiah had to be the firstborn.
Este es un concepto bien importante en el por qué Mesías tenía que ser el primogénito.
That the mother that he came out of
De la madre de la cual él salió,
had to have never had other children.
ella no podría haber tenido otros hijos.
But you first have to understand it from what the Father is telling us in Exodus.
Pero primero tienes que entenderlo de lo que el Padre nos está diciendo en Éxodo.
Let's read Shemot 13 to Exodus 13, verse 2.
Vamos a Éxodo capítulo 13, versículos 1 y el 2.
Set aside for me all the firstborn, whatever is first from the womb among the people of Israel, both of humans and of animals, belongs to me. Okay, what you're doing when you have a firstborn son,
Lo que tú estás haciendo cuando tienes un primogénito,
or what this is saying right now, the firstborn out of the womb,
o lo que está diciendo el primogénito del vientre,
okay, is you're sanctifying that firstborn.
es que estás santificando ese primogénito.
The Hebrew word for sanctification is kadash or kadosh.
La palabra hebrea para santificación es kadash o kadosh.
You're consecrating that firstborn.
Estás consagrando ese primogénito.
You're separating that firstborn
Estás separando ese primogénito
for a holy purpose.
por un propósito santo.
So the firstborn,
So, el primogénito
it's a very important understanding.
es un entendimiento bien importante.
Okay? The Lord, the Jehovah, the King of the universe,
Jehová, el Rey del Universo,
when you see Adonai in the CJB, that is the word Jehovah.
cuando ves a Adonai en la Biblia completa judía, eso es refiriendo a Jehová.
He's telling us,
Él nos está diciendo,
set aside for me all the firstborn.
aparta para mí todos los primogénitos.
Okay? Whatever is first from the womb,
Lo que nace primero del vientre,
he's saying it belongs, that soul belongs to him.
Él está diciendo que esa alma le pertenece a Él.
The firstborn is a consecration back to the Lord.
El primogénito es una consagración hacia el Señor.
It is a separation for the Lord.
Es una separación para el Señor.
And the firstborn son should understand what that means.
Y el primogénito debe de entender lo que significa eso.
That the firstborn is not a common person any longer.
Porque que el primogénito no es una persona común ya.
What? That's Anna's phone.
I'm over here, I'm like hearing shofars. I'm like, whoa, they're breaking open the seals? Because if you're good, you're going to have it.
It's Anna's phone. You die when you die. 6 or 7 children.
Now, I hear what you're saying, that the firstborn is something really important according to the Bible, according to what Jehovah says over here. But what if the firstborn never knew this? Because he was never taught, because like in our day and age, those of us who have discovered that we're of the lineage of Abraham, Yitz'chak, and Ya'akov, that we were never taught this because we've been separated so far apart from our original state or our original being as being, you know, of the bloodline. Like I'm speaking for myself, because I never knew this. I'm actually just learning this now. Welcome to Bethlehem.
Welcome to Bethlehem.
How does that play a part in like my life then and like now that I'm learning this?
Okay, there's a chapter, 2 chapters in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. Well, first say that in Spanish.
Okay. La pregunta que yo estoy haciendo es que, como aquellos de nosotros que acabamos de aprender que somos del linaje de Abraham, Yitz'chak y Ya'akov, que cuando en nuestras vidas, antes de venir a conocer al Mesías como Mesías, nosotros no sabíamos que el primogénito como yo, que soy el mayor de todos los hermanos míos y de todos los primos míos del lado de mi padre, y yo no sabía esto, y yo le estoy preguntando a Rabino que cómo esto hace un efecto en mi vida anterior y ahora que yo sé que
in Leviticus chapter 4 and 5,
en Levítico capítulo 4 y 5
there's the inadvertent error.
es el error inadvertido.
When you find out about it,
Cuando te enteras de eso,
you got to do the offering that's required,
tiene que ser la ofrenda que se requiere.
because God knows, He's omnipresent. He knows everything.
Porque Dios es omnipresente, él sabe todo.
He's here, there, and everywhere.
Él está aquí, allá y en todos lugares.
And it's what you do with the information once you learn the truth.
Es lo que uno hace con la información ya cuando uno viene a conocer la verdad.
Now you got to do what's right
Ahora, yo tengo que hacer lo que es correcto
in the offering.
en la ofrenda.
It doesn't mean that your adult son will want to comply with being consecrated.
No quiere decir que el hijo mío mayor va a querer obedecer en el ser consagrado.
But you have to ask for forgiveness.
Pero yo tengo que pedir perdón por, maybe you're misunderstanding my question. I hear what you're saying about my son, but I'm talking about me.
I was going to get to that.
Oh, because
Mario.
I'm the oldest of all my brothers.
Right. But okay, so let's work on what you have to do and then the next step.
Okay.
Okay. What you have to do is ask for forgiveness,
Lo que yo tengo que hacer es pedir perdón
because Torah lives inside of you.
porque la Torah vive dentro de mí.
But God knows that Jehovah knows that you weren't trained.
Pero Jehová sabe que yo no fui entrenado.
So Leviticus chapter 4 and chapter 5 tells you once you find out,
So, Levítico capítulo 4 y 5 nos dice ya cuando te enteras,
do the offering which is required.
hacer la ofrenda que se requiere.
Like, many people find out that they were breaking the Sabbath for their entire life.
Mucha gente se enteran que estaban quebrantando el Shabbat en toda su vida.
And they learn about that at Beth Goyim.
Y aprendieron de eso en Beth Goyim.
And then once they think they're old enough, they leave Beth Goyim.
Y ya cuando piensan que son mayores, se apartan de Beth Goyim.
Instead of staying and being blessed.
En vez de quedarse y ser bendecido.
Okay, so once you learn the truth, it tells you what you should do and at what level you should do it at.
So dice, ya cuando tú te enteras, dice lo que debes de hacer y a qué nivel lo debes de hacer.
Now, for yourself, knowing that you are the firstborn male,
Por mí, sabiendo que yo fui el primogénito,
then there'll be what you should do to consecrate yourself to that role.
so ahora tengo que saber lo que yo tengo que hacer para consagrarme a ese papel.
Okay, because there's there's different things that you should do.
Pues hay cosas diferentes que yo tengo que hacer.
Okay? So, what we're going to be talking about in this parasha
Lo que vamos a hablar en este Parasha
is the role, what Jehovah's telling us,
es el papel de lo que Jehová nos está diciendo.
is that the firstborn is supposed to be set aside.
Que el primogénito debe ser apartado.
And it's saying in Shemot 13:2, Exodus 13:2,
Y dice en Shemot 13, capítulo 13, versículo 2,
that the father is supposed to set. Let's just talk about the sons right now.
vamos a hablar sobre los hijos ahora.
The father is supposed to separate that son to
Eh,
belong to God.
que el padre está separando ese hijo para dedicárselo a Dios.
It's going to have a lot to do with redemption.
Tiene que ver mucho con la redención.
So here, you have another question?
No.
Because your two fingers are up.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So when it said set aside,
Cuando dice apartado,
that's the word sanctify.
esa es la palabra santificar.
Okay. So you're consecrating that firstborn son.
So estás consagrando ese primogénito.
You're separating that firstborn son.
Estás separando ese primogénito.
Not away from the common.
No fuera de lo común.
Okay? So you're going to treat that child differently
So vas a tratar ese hijo diferente.
because they are different.
Porque sí son diferentes.
And this is what the Torah teaches us.
Y esto es lo que nos enseña la Torah.
Because the firstborn son and the firstborn out of the womb has a lot to do with God.
Pero el primogénito del vientre tiene que ver mucho con Dios.
Okay? You're going to separate that child.
Vas a separar ese hijo, esa criatura.
Now in verse 2 it says whatever first is from the womb.
El versículo dice lo que nace primero del vientre.
So if that's a girl, she's also consecrated for a greater purpose.
So, si es una hembra, también ella es consagrada por un propósito mayor.
It later on says, don't touch the cookies,
Don't
man.
touch the cookies.
It's going to go right to your waist. It's going to right to your thighs and then you'll explode. Okay? But then it furthers it for then when a firstborn son is born.
Pero lo lleva más allá para cuando nace un hijo primogénito.
Okay? So it says whatever is first from the womb.
Dice lo que nace primero del vientre.
Okay? Now some people read it as among the people of Israel, Bnei Israel, as only the sons.
Mucha gente lo lee en el hebreo de Bnei Israel que se trata solo de los hijos.
But this is where Bnei gets a little more of a greater understanding.
Pero aquí es donde hay un mayor entendimiento sobre la palabra Bnei.
Because then you get into the word whatever. Like, why does it say whatever is first?
Porque entonces podemos mirar el por qué dice lo que sea primero, lo que nazca primero.
So let's put that aside for right now.
Vamos a echar eso para un lado por ahora.
Because we're just going to talk about the firstborn son.
Porque solamente vamos a hablar del hijo primogénito.
Because then this study won't get done in 2 hours.
Porque entonces no terminamos este estudio en 2 horas.
So the firstborn is consecrated,
So, el primogénito es consagrado,
separated.
separado.
It's that person is set aside.
Esa persona es puesto para un lado.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now let's turn to Numbers, Bamidbar 18, verse 15.
Vamos a Números capítulo 18, versículo 15.
Numbers 18, verse 15.
Números capítulo 18, versículo 15.
Anybody learn anything today?
¿Están aprendiendo algo hoy? Yeah. That if you're good, you go to heaven. But if you're bad, you die when you die.
Numbers 18, Bamidbar 18, verse 15.
Números 18, versículo 15.
Everything that comes first out of the womb of all living things which they offer to Jehovah, whether human or animal, will be yours. However, the firstborn of a human being you must redeem, and the firstborn of an unclean beast you are to redeem. Okay, so now we're taking this concept a little further.
Ahora estamos llevando este concepto un poquito más lejos.
The firstborn, let's just talk about sons,
Vamos solamente a hablar ahora, tratar con los hijos.
is going to be the one that is the redemption of that family.
Es el que va a ser el redentor o la redención de esa familia.
Let me say that again.
Deja repetir eso.
The firstborn that we're talking about now
El primogénito del cual estamos hablando ahora
has something to do with redemptive powers.
tiene algo que ver con los poderes de redención.
Okay, the word redeem
La palabra redimir
is H6299.
es el H6299.
It's the Hebrew root word padah.
Es la palabra raíz hebrea padá.
Redeem means to ransom.
Eh,
We're looking up the word for ransom in Spanish.
el rescate, rescatar,
Redeem,
redimir,
rescue,
rescatar, salvar,
like salvation,
yeah,
and deliver.
y liberar.
Okay, let me say those again,
Deja repetirlo.
because it's very important what this firstborn son is going to do.
Es bien importante a ver lo que este primer primogénito va a hacer.
The firstborn son is set aside, he's consecrated,
El hijo primogénito es puesto para un lado, es separado, consagrado.
he is a redeemer,
Él es un redentor.
he is a rescuer of the family,
Él es el salvador de la familia.
he is a deliverer.
Él es el liberador.
Let me say that again.
Deja repetir eso.
The firstborn is consecrated,
El hijo primogénito es consagrado.
he is used to ransom the family from death,
Él se usa para redimir o rescatar la familia de la muerte.
he is to redeem that family because he's now the priest of the family.
Él tiene que redimir esa familia porque ahora viene a ser el sacerdote de esa familia.
He is going to rescue the family.
Él va a rescatar o salvar la familia.
He's going to deliver the family.
Él va a liberar la familia.
Sound like anybody we know?
¿Lo sabe?
Let's go to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Turn to Revelation 1, Revelation chapter 1, verse 5 and 6.
Vamos a Apocalipsis capítulo 1, versículos 5 y 6.
Revelation chapter 1, verse 5 and 6.
Apocalipsis capítulo 1, versículos 5 y 6.
Welcome to Beth Going.
After all these years. I'm still saying wow.
Good. Maybe you'll never get cold like others.
Yeah.
Because I've looked to see if there's any other teachings like this so I can work with somebody,
No, there's not.
except for Rav Ed. I'm going to tell him in front of everybody. Rav Ed's teachings are going to be airing in California now, starting in
Ooh.
2 weeks.
Ooh.
On KKMC at 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Sundays, 8 o'clock Western Time.
Nice. Mazel tov.
We're going to do the laws that you're teaching in Road to Emmaus.
Baruch Hashem. Nice.
As
Mazel
like-
tov.
Revelation 1, verse 5 and 6.
Apocalipsis capítulo 1, versículos 5 y 6.
And from Yeshua the Messiah, the faithful witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler of the earth's kings, to him the one who loves us, who has freed us from our sins at the cost of his blood, who has caused us to be a kingdom that is Kohanim for Jehovah, his Father. To him be the glory and rulership forever and ever. Amen. Now, what was the word for redeem that we found in Torah?
¿Qué fue la palabra para redimir que encontramos en Torah?
Well, the root word was padah.
La palabra raíz es padah,
It means ransom,
significa rescate,
redeem,
redimir,
rescue,
salvar
deliverer.
y liberador.
This is why verse 5 of Revelation 1 is so important.
Por eso que el versículo 5 de Apocalipsis capítulo 1 es bien importante.
Because that word firstborn is very important.
Porque esa palabra primogénito que se ve ahí en el versículo 5 es bien importante.
Because the firstborn
Porque el primogénito
is consecrated to God.
es consagrado para Dios.
The firstborn is sanctified to Jehovah.
El primero es santificado para Jehová.
The firstborn is the redeemer of the family.
El primogénito es el redentor de la familia.
The firstborn is the ransom that the family pays back to God.
El primogénito es el rescate que la familia le paga de vuelta a Dios.
So that your family can be redeemed.
Para que tu familia pueda ser redimida.
That's why Yeshua's title of the Son of Man is very
Por
important.
eso que el título de Hijo del Hombre de Yeshua es bien importante.
Because he is the ransom.
Porque Él es el rescate.
Because you got to get back to the Father.
Porque tiene que darle de vuelta al Padre. Wow.
He is the Redeemer. He's the offering.
Él es el Redentor, Él es la ofrenda.
So you have to give that firstborn son back to God.
So tienes que dar de vuelta ese primogénito a Dios.
Shmuel, Shmuel.
Asher.
Remember, the mother waited a long time to have the baby.
Y acuérdate que la mamá esperó mucho tiempo para tener un bebé.
And every year she would bring him a new tali.
Y que todos los años le compraba un talí nuevo.
And, remember Jehovah talked to him?
Y acuérdate
In
que
the
Yahweh
temple?
le habló en el templo.
Shmuel, Shmuel.
Yeah, Shmuel. Shmuel.
She had to redeem him.
Ella tuvo que redimirlo.
And then she had more children after fulfilling the promise of the firstborn of the womb.
Y después ella tuvo más hijos después de cumplir con la promesa del vientre.
So Yeshua is the firstborn of the Father.
So Yeshua es el primogénito del Padre.
The firstborn is the ransom for the family.
El primogénito es el rescate de la familia.
That's why we're the family of God.
Por eso que somos la familia de Dios.
That's why, look at verse 6.
Porque vamos a mirar el versículo 6.
Who has caused us to be a kingdom that is Kohanim for Jehovah, his Father. To him be the glory and rulership forever and ever. Amen.
Amén.
So here, if you're following the Torah,
Aquí si estás siguiendo la Torah,
then you're a kingdom of Kohanim, of priests.
entonces eres un reino de Coanim, de sacerdotes.
You're a family of priests
Eres una familia de sacerdotes.
because you're consecrated. Your family is consecrated
Porque tu familia es consagrada.
because they're doing what the firstborn was supposed to do.
Porque están haciendo lo que el primogénito tenía que hacer.
You paid the ransom,
Has pagado el rescate.
and by giving the firstborn to the Lord,
Y en entregar el primogénito al Señor,
you'll be delivered from bondage.
va a ser liberado de la esclavitud.
Now, this is a very important role for the firstborn to play.
Este es un papel bien importante para el primogénito.
And the father of the family should tell the son how important this is.
Y el padre de la familia debe decirle al hijo cuán importante es esto.
The father of the family should know how important this
El
is.
padre de la familia debe saber cuán importante es esto.
And he should impart that to his son
Y debe impartir eso a su hijo
so he doesn't disrespect what his role is.
para que no le falte el respeto o desprecie su papel.
Let's move on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Now let's go back to Genesis 25,
Regresemos a Génesis capítulo 25,
verse 29 through 34. Any questions on the redemption?
versículos 29 al 34. ¿Hay preguntas sobre la redención?
He's just a wiggle butt. Asher, sit still. Hey. Hey.
When you get in trouble, it's always by me, right?
Sit. Genesis 25, verse 29 to 34.
Génesis capítulo 25, versículos 29 al 34.
One day when Yaakov had cooked some stew, Esav came in from the open country exhausted and said to Yaakov, "Please, let me gulp down some of that red stuff, I'm exhausted." Yaakov answered, "First, sell me your rights as the firstborn." "Look, I'm about to die," said Esau. What use to me are my rights as the firstborn?" Yaakov said, "First swear to me." So he swore to him, thus selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up, and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. Let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
And let's go back to verse 29 and 30.
Vamos a regresar a los versículos 29 y 30.
One day when Yaakov had cooked some stew, Esau came in from the open country, exhausted. He said to Yaakov, "Please let me gulp down some of that red stuff, I'm exhausted." Yaakov answered, "First sell me your rights as a firstborn." Okay, so what are we seeing here?
¿Qué es lo que estamos viendo aquí?
Because we now know that these two boys are twins.
Sabemos ya que estos dos varones son gemelos.
Esau is the older,
Esaú es el mayor,
Yaakov is the younger,
Jacob es el menor.
just by a few minutes, but Yaakov is still not the firstborn.
Por un par de minutos, pero Jacob sigue siendo el menor.
We've now discovered in our studies so far tonight,
Hemos descubierto en nuestros estudios esta noche,
the role of the firstborn is very important.
el papel del primogénito es muy importante.
The firstborn is to be separated,
El primogénito debe de ser separado,
consecrated.
consagrado.
The firstborn is the redeemer of the family.
El primogénito es el redentor de la familia.
The firstborn is the ransom for the
El
family.
primogénito es el rescate de la familia.
The firstborn is going to be treated differently than the next children.
El primogénito va a ser tratado diferente que los demás.
So now in verse 29 through 31,
Ahora de los versículos 29 al 31
we see that the boys have grown up
vemos que los varones crecieron
because Esau was out hunting.
porque Esaú estaba cazando.
And you don't send your kid out hunting unless he's old enough.
Tú no envías a tu hijo para que case a menos que esté mayor de edad.
But what we see now in verse 31,
Lo que vemos aquí en el versículo 31,
Yaakov answered, "First sell me your rights as the firstborn."
Jacob contestó, primero véndeme tus derechos de tu primogenitura.
So Yaakov is coveting the firstborn's role
So Jacob está codiciando el papel del mayor.
because he's like, sell me this thing.
Él está diciendo, véndeme esto.
Now why would he want this right?
¿Por qué él quisiera este derecho, primogenitura.
Now remember we started off earlier.
Acuérdate que comenzamos más temprano,
Jehovah said when these boys were still in the womb,
que Jehová dijo que cuando estos varones todavía estaban en el vientre,
the older is going to serve the younger.
que el mayor iba a servir al menor.
But he didn't tell us how that was going to happen.
Él no nos explicó cómo eso iba a
He
suceder.
didn't tell us the details.
Él no nos explicó en detalle.
Now, Esau does not have to I'll answer that question later. Esau does not have to sell his right.
Esaú no tenía que vender su primogenitura.
He's not being forced to.
A él no se le está esforzando.
This is why God said the older is going to serve the younger,
Por eso fue que Dios dijo que el mayor iba a servir al menor.
but he didn't tell us how.
Pero no nos explicó cómo.
Because we all make choices.
Porque toditos nosotros hacemos elecciones.
Choices that are going to make our lives easier,
Elecciones que va a hacer nuestras vidas más fácil.
choices that are going to make our lives harder,
Elecciones que va a hacer nuestras vidas más difícil.
but we should always follow God's laws.
Pero debemos siempre seguir las leyes de Dios.
Well, God's law was not written yet.
Pero la ley de Dios no estaba escrita todavía.
It was in our hearts.
Estaba en nuestros corazones.
Because remember, he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah.
Acuérdate que él, because he destroyed.
He had already
Oh,
destroyed
porque-
Sodom and Gomorrah in chapter 19.
Porque en el capítulo 19 él ya había destruido a Sodoma y Gomorra.
He already flooded the world in
Chapter
Ver-
6.
chapter 6,
Yeah.
6 and
Eh,
7.
Él ya inundó al mundo en capítulo 6, 7.
So how can a just God do those two events
So, ¿cómo puede un Dios justo hacer esos dos eventos?
unless the people knew the rules?
A menos que la gente conociera las reglas.
Now, it is important for Yitz'chak to really make it known to his sons.
Es bien importante a Yitz'chak hacerle saber a sus hijos,
And he already did,
y ya lo había hecho.
because we're going to see that in a few minutes.
Porque vamos a ver eso en un par de minutos.
But sometimes we don't want to do our role.
Pero a veces nosotros no queremos desempeñar nuestro papel.
And sometimes, like me, we run away from our role.
Y a veces, como yo, huimos de nuestro papel.
But then the Lord offers you a deal that you can't refuse.
A veces el Señor te hace un trato que no puedes rechazar.
I'm going to offer you such a deal.
Te voy a ofrecer un tremendo trato.
Okay? So here we see in verse 31
Aquí vemos en el versículo 31
that Yaakov answered, "First sell me your rights as the firstborn."
que Jacob le contestó, primero véndeme tu primogenitura.
So if you were going to sell your right as a firstborn, you better make it a heavy-duty price.
Si vas a vender tu primogenitura, debe de valer la pena.
You know, make it worth, 10 pounds of gold.
10 libras de oro, por lo menos.
But make it worth something.
Sí, haz que valga algo, por lo menos.
Because you don't know what you're giving up.
Porque no realizas lo que estás entregando.
But spiritually, you're giving up a lot.
Pero espiritualmente estás entregando mucho.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Verse 32 to 34.
Versículos 32 al 34.
"Look, I'm about to die," said Esau. "What use to me are my rights as the firstborn?" Yaakov said, "First swear to me." So he swore to him, thus selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up, went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. Amen?
Amen.
So let's first look at verse 32 again.
So, vamos a mirar nuevamente al versículo 32.
Look, I'm about to die, said Esav. What use to me are my rights as a firstborn? So here in verse 32,
Aquí en el versículo 32,
he doesn't understand his responsibility.
él no entiende su responsabilidad.
He's saying, what use are my rights as a firstborn?
Él dice, ¿de qué me valen los derechos de mi primogenitura?
Instead of, I have the honor of the firstborn.
En vez de decir, yo tengo el honor del primogénito.
Okay? It's a very important part. You can look into the mind of Esau this way.
Pues es una parte bien importante. Así podemos mirar en la mente de Esaú.
Because he's talking about using something instead of being honored with something.
Porque él está hablando sobre el usar algo en vez de ser honrado con algo.
Let me say that again.
Voy a repetir eso.
He's saying he's thinking of using the firstborn instead of honoring the firstborn.
Él está pensando en usar la primogenitura en vez de honrar la primogenitura.
See, as Kohanim of God, we're supposed to be a priest, a nation of priests.
¿Ves como Kohanim de Dios debemos de ser una nación de sacerdotes?
We should be honored with that.
Debemos ser honrados con eso.
That you're invited into the family.
Que está siendo invitado a la familia.
That you're welcomed into the family.
Que estás bienvenido a la familia.
That because Yeshua redeemed us from sin,
Porque Yeshua nos redimió del pecado.
you should not want to sin.
Debes el no querer pecar más.
You should understand your role.
Debes de entender tu papel.
Now we look at verse 33 and 34.
Ahora miramos los versículos 33 y 34.
Yaakov said, "First swear to me." So he swore to him, thus selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up, and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. Okay, so now in verse 33,
Ahora en el versículo 33,
Yaakov asks again,
Jacob le pregunta de nuevo,
"Give me your right as the firstborn.
dame tu primogenitura,
Sell me your right as the firstborn."
véndeme tu primogenitura.
So this shows that the Father has taught them, or they know it from the Father in heaven.
Esto demuestra que el Padre le han enseñado
Or the Father in heaven.
o el Padre en el cielo.
Yitz'chak has told them what the understanding is,
Yitz'chak le había explicado el entendimiento de esto.
because the two sons are talking about the role of firstborn.
Porque los dos hijos están hablando sobre el papel del primogénito.
So they know what they're doing.
So saben lo que están haciendo.
Yaakov wants it,
Jacob lo quiere, lo desea,
but Esau has it.
pero Esaú lo tiene.
See, a lot of times we want things, so we become very short-sighted.
Muchas veces al querer algo nos cortamos la vista.
We don't think what's going to happen a year from now.
No pensamos a lo que va a suceder en el futuro como en un año de ahora.
We just want the pain to stop.
Solo queremos que pare el dolor.
You know, your family's bothering you about keeping the Shabbat.
Tu familia te está molestando sobre el guardar el Shabbat.
Your family says, well, you don't eat that anymore.
Tu familia dice, ya tú no comes eso más.
You don't do that
Ya
anymore.
no haces eso.
You don't go to birthday parties anymore.
Ya no vas a cumpleaños.
You don't eat lobster anymore.
Ya no come langosta,
Whatever it is.
lo que sea.
And you appease that person or those people.
Y tratas de agradar a esa persona o esa gente.
or you have an unevenly yoked home,
o tienes una casa que está yugo desigual,
which many people that have come to Beth Goyim have.
que muchos que han venido a Beth Goyim tienen.
The husband is not a believer, but the wife is a believer.
Que el esposo no es creyente, pero la esposa sí.
And you break the Shabbat
Y quebrantas el Shabbat.
because I don't want to fight with my wife anymore.
Ya no quiero pelear más con mi esposo.
I don't want to fight with my husband
No
anymore.
quiero pelear con mi esposo más.
But you're supposed to be consecrated to the Lord.
Debes de ser consagrado al Señor.
Esav said, what use are my rights as a firstborn?
Esaú dijo, ¿de qué me sirven mi primogenitura?
He's very short-sighted.
Él está bien corto de vista.
He's not thinking eternally.
Él no está pensando eternamente.
Had he not sold his rights as a firstborn,
Si él no hubiera vendido su primogenitura,
we'd be the children of Abraham, Yitz'chak, and Esau.
vendríamos a ser los hijos de Abraham, Yitz'chak y Esaú.
He'd have a place, and he'd be already in heaven.
Él ya estuviera en el cielo.
Yes?
Is this why God says, Yaakov I love, but Esau I hated? Because Esau despised his first.
I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there, Mario. I'm building there, man. I'm building.
I'm sorry.
But the lesson you have to learn.
La lección que debes de aprender.
You have to be farsighted. You have to look all the way to the finish line.
Tienes que tener una vista que mira hasta el fin de la carrera.
And a lot of people don't.
Y mucha gente no.
Esau didn't.
Esaú no.
He only looked, I'm hungry.
Él solo vio que tenía hambre.
Many men commit adultery.
Muchos
And
hombres
women
cometen,
do that a lot today.
Hoy en día muchos hombres y mujeres cometen adulterio.
And then you don't understand how, because you're thinking short-sighted.
Porque estás pensando con una corta vista.
Abraham thought short-sighted.
Abraham pensó con una corta vista.
He didn't wait on God's promises.
Él-
Remember, we were talking about that in the beginning.
Él no esperó por la promesa de Dios. Acuérdate que estuvimos hablando de eso en el principio.
Yitz'chak waited
Isaac esperó
because he waited 20 years and then he got twins.
porque él esperó 20 años y después se le dieron gemelos.
But he didn't take a concubine
Pero él no tomó una concubina
and caused problems in the family.
y causar problemas en la
A
familia.
lot of people think very short-sighted.
Mucha gente piensa con una corta vista.
We got to think far in advance.
Tenemos que pensar más allá, más allá de aquí, más lejos.
So here Esau is, what are my rights? Well, use are my rights of the firstborn.
Esaú dijo, ¿de qué me sirve mi primogenitura?
If you're talking, you're not going to be dying.
Si estás hablando, no vas a morir.
You might be hungry, but you're not going to be dead.
Tal vez tenga hambre, pero no vas a morir.
Okay, now let's go to verse 34.
Vamos al versículo 34.
Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up, and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. Okay, now in verse 34.
Ahora en el versículo 34.
In the CJB that we just read, the Complete Jewish Bible,
En la Biblia completa judía que terminamos de leer,
it really isn't a strong translation
en verdad no es una traducción fuerte,
because it said how little he valued his birthright.
porque dice cuán poco él valoró su primogenitura.
In other translations, it has the word despised his birthright.
En otras traducciones dice que él despreció su primogenitura.
That is a very different understanding.
Eso es un entendimiento muy diferente.
Now let's go to the next slide
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
because we're going to look at the word despised.
Porque vamos a mirar la palabra despreciado.
The word despise is H959.
La palabra despreciado es la palabra 8959.
The root word is bazah.
La palabra raíz es bazá.
It means number one,
Significa, número uno,
to despise,
despreciar.
to hold in contempt, hatred,
Odiar.
disdain. Another synonym of disdain. Dislike immensely.
Despreciar. Sí, despreciar inmensamente.
Number two,
Número dos,
to be vile,
ser vil,
worthless.
sin valor.
Esau thought his birthright was disgusting.
Esaú pensó que de su primogenitura que algo repugnante.
He thought his birthright was worthless.
Él pensó que su primogenitura no tenía valor.
This is why
Detestar.
he didn't care about his birthright.
Él no le importó su primogenitura.
It's a very important concept.
Es un concepto bien importante.
And this is why we teach Yeshua and the law here.
Por eso que enseñamos a Yeshua y la ley aquí.
Wrong button. Okay, let's go on to the next slide because it's a very... One second.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
All right, let me go back over here.
It's two rabbis.
Oh, thank goodness I'm beside myself. Okay, let me get back to the proper slide.
Contempt, desdén, menosprecio. Very good.
Okay. So Esav thought his birth, the oldest thing, was vile, disgusting.
Esaú pensó de su primogenitura como algo repugnante, algo.
And sadly,
Y tristemente,
my mother said the same thing about being Jewish.
y tristemente mi mamá también declaró lo mismo de ser judía,
Because they didn't understand what it meant to God.
porque ellos no entendían lo que le significa a Dios.
So we're here to be picked on.
So aquí estamos a ser escogidos.
She didn't understand what the role of the firstborn is.
Ella no entendía lo que el papel del primogénito era.
Israel is God's firstborn.
Israel es el primogénito de Dios.
When you don't understand the concept of being part of that family,
Cuando no entiendes el concepto de ser parte de esa familia.
when you make a vow to become part of the tribe of Benjamin,
Cuando hace un voto para venir a ser parte de la tribu de Benjamín.
and then you break your vow. Stop hitting the button. What is wrong with you? Sign out. Let me sign out of it. We don't do Skype anymore. We do WebEx. I only use WebEx to send you the PowerPoint.
Solamente usamos Webex para mandar las diapositivas. Ya no usamos Webex, conéctate a Skype. Ya no usamos Skype, conéctate a Webex.
I'll get to your question later on, I said.
Te contesto tu pregunta después.
There's something. Okay.
Es una aplicación que se usa para, igual que Skype, pero es más
We used to use Skype, but nobody was picking up. So, anyway, let's get back to this study.
Vamos a regresar al estudio.
So, Israel is God's firstborn.
Israel es el primogénito de Dios.
You're supposed to be consecrated,
Está supuesto ser consagrado,
separated
separado
for a holy purpose,
para un propósito santo,
but Israel doesn't want to be that way.
pero Israel no quiere ser de esa forma.
Let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Verse 34 alone, 25-34.
Vamos a leer solamente el versículo 34 esta vez.
Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up and went on his way. Thus Esav showed how he despised his birthright. Esau despised his birthright.
Esaú despreció su primogenitura.
And you prove that,
Y se comprueba eso,
that he despised his birthright.
que él despreció su primogenitura.
Now, the firstborn son is consecrated,
Ahora, el primogénito es consagrado,
will be in charge of the family if the father dies.
va a ser a cargo de la familia si el padre muere.
So you know he despises his birthright
So, sabes que él desprecia su primogenitura
by selling it for a bowl of stew.
en venderlo por un plato de lentejas.
This concept is very important
Este concepto es bien importante
because later on in the prophecies,
porque después en las profecías
Israel sells herself for a bowl of stew.
porque Israel se vende ella misma por un plato de lentejas.
She makes herself a prostitute.
Se hace de ella una prostituta.
See, he sold his birthright for so little.
Él vendió su primogenitura por tan poco.
He had no regard for the spiritual blessings that were supposed to come his way.
No tuvo respeto por las bendiciones espirituales que tenían que venir hacia él.
Now remember, we read the prophecy.
Acuérdate que leímos la profecía,
The older was going to serve the younger.
que el mayor iba a servir al menor.
He was supposed to be a priest.
Él estaba supuesto ser un sacerdote.
Yeshua was a king, but he became a servant.
Yeshua era rey, pero vino a ser un siervo.
He served us as a man.
Él nos sirvió a nosotros como hombre.
He came here to be a servant,
Él vino aquí a ser sirviente.
yet he was our older brother because he was created first.
Pero él fue nuestro hermano mayor porque fue creado primero. Wow. Wow.
See how different it could have been?
¿Ves cuán diferente podía haber sido?
Let me say that again.
Deja repetir eso de nuevo.
The prophecy when the children were in the womb
La profecía de cuando los gemelos estaban en el vientre
was the older was supposed to serve the younger.
es que el mayor tenía que servir al menor.
Yeshua is our older brother
Yeshua es nuestro hermano mayor
because he's the first one created by the Father.
porque él fue el primero creado por el Padre.
He came here to be a servant.
Él vino aquí a ser siervo.
The older would serve the younger,
El mayor iba a servir al menor,
but still be a king.
pero todavía ser rey.
So Esau sells his birthright.
So, Esaú vende su primogenitura.
Israel tries to give her birthright away.
Israel trata de regalar su primogenitura.
So Esau sells his birthright,
Esaú vende su primogenitura,
giving up his spiritual blessings.
entregando sus bendiciones espirituales.
What spiritual blessings?
¿Qué bendiciones espirituales?
We are supposed to be the children of Abraham, Yitz'chak, and Esau.
Estábamos supuestos ser los hijos de Abraham, Yitz'chak y Esaú.
He gave up all those spiritual blessings for short-sighted gratification.
Él entregó todas esas bendiciones espirituales por agradar la carne en tan corta vista.
Oh, I don't want to argue with my wife anymore, so I'm just going to do what she says.
Yo no quiero pelear o batallar con mi esposa, Marzo, voy a hacer lo que ella dice.
I'm going to break the Shabbat.
Voy a quebrantar el Shabbat.
I'm going to go to a place that's Talmudic.
A un lugar que es talmúdico.
Oh, I'm going to cook bacon for my husband.
Voy a cocinar tocino para mi esposo. Turkey bacon,
No, I'm going to cook him
beef bacon.
a fresh ham.
Va a cocinar
Well, my husband likes lobster.
mi esposo le gusta la langosta.
He wants me to go on vacation with him,
Él quiere que yo vaya
and we're gonna miss the Shabbat.
y vamos a faltar el Shabbat.
I don't want to fight anymore.
Ya yo no quiero pelear más.
Short sight.
Corta vista.
This is what Esau did,
Esto fue lo que hizo Esaú.
and he gave up his heavenly inheritance.
Y él entregó su herencia celestial.
And to this day, we're still having problems in Israel because of what he did.
Y todavía, hasta el día de hoy, todavía estamos teniendo en Israel por lo que...
Going on to next
A
slide,
la próxima diapositiva,
verse 34 again.
versículo 30. Nuevamente.
Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank and got up and went on his way. Thus, Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. Okay? So, how little he valued his birthright.
De tan poco que él valoró su primogenitura.
He despised his birthright.
Él detestó, despreció su primogenitura.
Why is that important?
¿Por qué esto es importante?
Hold your place there.
Mantén tu lugar ahí.
Turn to the book of Hebrews, chapter 12.
Vamos al libro de Hebreos, capítulo 12.
Hebrews 12, verse 16.
Hebreos 12, versículo 16.
You're listening to WTRCradio.com. See our Messianic music concert update right on the website.
Puedes ver,
You can go see Broken Walls at the Iditarod in Alaska this week.
let's take a flight to Alaska.
Okay, Hebrews 12, verse 16.
Hebreos capítulo 12, versículo 16.
Messianic Hebrews 12, verse 16. We're going to read the second half of the sentence.
Vamos a leer la segunda parte del versículo.
Or godless. Oh, we'll wait for help her find Hebrews. Hebrews 12.
What?
And this will answer Mario's question.
Esto va a contestar mi pregunta.
Second half of the sentence of verse 16.
En la segunda parte del versículo, del versículo 16.
Or godless like Esau, who in exchange for a single meal gave up his rights as a firstborn. So in Hebrews are calling Esau godless.
En hebreo están hablando, en el libro de Hebreos están mencionando a Esaú como que no es piadoso, es un hombre sin Dios.
When you despise your role
Cuando detestas o desprecias tu papel
as a priest of God,
como sacerdote de Dios
or as the firstborn in this case,
o como el primogénito en este caso,
you're godless.
eres una persona que no tiene a Dios.
So if we're calling Esau godless in the Brit Hadashah,
Si estamos llamando a Esaú un hombre que no tiene a Dios,
where do we think Esau is living now?
¿a dónde pensamos que está viviendo Esaú ahora?
He's not in heaven.
Él no está en el cielo.
If you're godless, that means you're in hell.
Si eres una persona sin Dios, impío, estás viviendo en el infierno.
When you despise God's laws,
Cuando detestas o desprecias las leyes de Dios,
then you're godless.
entonces eres impío.
Let's go on to the next slide.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Go back to Genesis 25, verse 34.
Regresemos a Génesis capítulo 25, versículo 34.
Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little or how he despised his birthright. When you despise your responsibility,
Cuando detestas o desprecias tu responsabilidad,
when you despise this God-given responsibility,
cuando desprecias o detestas esta responsabilidad dada por Dios,
you're worse than an unbeliever.
eres peor que un impío.
Hold your place there in Genesis.
Mantén tu lugar ahí en Génesis.
Turn to 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8.
Vamos a primera carta de Timoteo, capítulo 5, versículo 8.
1 Timothy 5, verse 8.
Primera Timoteo, versículo 5, capítulo 5, versículo 8.
1 Timothy 5, verse 8.
Primera de Timoteo, capítulo 5, versículo 8.
Moreover, anyone who does not provide for his own people, especially for his family, has disavowed the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. 1 Timothy 5, verse 8.
Primera de Timoteo, capítulo 5, versículo 8.
So what did Esau do when he sold his birthright?
So, ¿qué fue lo que Esaú hizo cuando él vendió su primogenitura?
He disowned his family.
Él se deshizo de su familia.
Just
Vendió
for a bowl of soup.
por un plato de lentejas.
Just for a bowl of soup.
Por un plato de lentejas.
When you're short-sighted,
Cuando eres corto de vista,
you will break the commandments.
vas a quebrantar los mandamientos. Put your glasses on. Don't break the commandments.
When you don't understand your role
Cuando no entiendes tu papel
as leaders,
como líderes,
and we're supposed to be a kingdom of Kohanim,
debemos de ser, o estamos supuestos a ser un reino de sacerdotes.
when you stop doing what you're supposed to be doing,
Cuando te detienes de hacer lo que debes de hacer,
as Esau did
como Esaú hizo,
by despising his birthright,
por detestar o despreciar su primogenitura,
he disowned his family.
él vendió a su familia, se deshizo de
But
él.
Father, bless me.
Pero Padre, bendíceme a mí.
Why? You didn't really care about it. You just wanted money.
¿Por qué? No, en verdad no te importó, lo que querías era el dinero.
You didn't care about your birthright.
No te importó tu primogenitura.
You're worse than an unbeliever.
Eres peor que un impío.
Let's
que
go
un
to
incrédulo.
let's go to Luke chapter 16,
Vamos a Lucas capítulo 16,
verse 10 and 11.
versículos 10 y 11.
Luke 16, verse 10 and 11.
Lucas capítulo 16, versículos 10 y 11.
Everybody enjoying this study?
Todos están disfrutando de este estudio.
Luke 16, verse 10 and 11.
Lucas 16, versículos 10 y 11.
Someone who is trustworthy in a small matter is also trustworthy in large ones. And someone who is dishonest in a small matter is also dishonest in large ones. So if you haven't been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who's going to trust you with the real thing? So here Esau was not trustworthy with a small thing.
So aquí a Esaú no se le podía confiar con algo pequeño.
Why would God trust him with something larger?
¿Por qué Dios iba a confiar en él con algo más grande?
He despised his birthright.
Él detestó su primogenitura.
When you despise God's commandments,
Cuando desprecias o detestas los mandamientos de Dios,
when you capitulate or give in to people,
cuando te rindes a la gente,
you're dishonest.
eres deshonesto. ¿Estás qué? entregando a la gente la primogenitura a la gente. Ya.
So here in Luke, Yeshua is telling us,
Aquí en Lucas, Yeshua nos está diciendo,
I'm not going to trust you with the kingdom.
yo no te voy a confiar con el reino,
I'm not going to trust you in my Father's house
yo no te voy a confiar con la casa de mi padre,
because you can't even keep the Sabbath holy.
porque tú ni puedes guardar el Shabbat Santo.
You're breaking the Kadosh Mikra, the holy gathering.
Estás quebrantando el Kadosh Mikra, la convocación santa.
So why would he trust you with in his house in Hashemayim?
So, ¿por qué él te va a confiar en su casa en Hashemayim?
If you despise your birthright,
Si desprecias o detestas tu primogenitura,
if you despise the Sabbath,
si desprecias o detestas el Shabbat,
if you want more Talmud than you want Torah,
si quieres más Talmud que Torah,
if you want more Sunday than you want the Shabbat,
quieres más domingo que el mismo Shabbat,
he's not going to trust you with the real thing.
él no te va a confiar con lo verdadero.
Okay? Let's go on to, I believe, the last slide.
Vamos
No,
a-
one more.
Vamos a la próxima diapositiva.
Responsibility.
Responsabilidad.
Let's go to Genesis chapter 3.
Vamos a Génesis capítulo 3.
Because responsibility of being the firstborn is a great responsibility.
Porque la responsabilidad de ser el primogénito es una gran responsabilidad.
But you can't blame other people for your mistakes.
Pero no puedes culpar a los demás por tus errores.
You got to own your own mistakes.
Tienes que adueñarte de tus errores.
Esau was asked twice to give up his birthright.
A Esaú se le pidió 2 veces que entregara su
He should
primogenitura.
have said, you'd have to kill me for my birthright.
Él hubiera dicho, me tienes que matar para mi primogenitura.
Genesis 3, verse 12 and 13.
Génesis 3, versículos 12 y 13.
The man replied, the woman you gave to me to be with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree, and I ate. Yehovah Elohim said to the woman, what is this that you have done? The woman answered, the serpent tricked me, so I ate. Your responsibility was your own.
La responsabilidad era tuya propia.
Esau's responsibility was to be the firstborn,
La responsabilidad de Esaú era ser el primogénito, el mayor.
but he didn't care.
Pero a él no le importó,
He despised it.
lo despreció.
But we're always blaming others for our responsibility.
Pero siempre estamos tratando de culpar al otro por nuestros errores, por nuestra responsabilidad.
My husband is a pagan.
Mi papá es, mi papá, mi esposo es un pagano.
My wife is a pagan.
Mi esposa es una pagana.
Responsibility is your own.
La responsabilidad es tuya.
Adam was trying to blame his wife.
Adán trató de culpar a su esposa.
No, take the responsibility yourself, son.
Toma la responsabilidad, hazte responsable de tus errores.
You were the firstborn,
Tú eras el primogénito
and you gave up your spiritual blessings.
y tú entregaste tus bendiciones espirituales.
You see how food is always killing things?
¿Ves cómo la comida siempre está matando a algo?
That's like lentil stew is vegetables.
No,
Lentil is
vegetales.
beans.
Oh, lentils are legumes, not vegetables.
It's
a lot
what?
Of, lot of legumes.
It's vegetables.
It's-
Okay. Last slide, then we'll wrap up tonight.
Última diapositiva y terminamos esta noche.
Let's go back to Genesis 25,
Regresemos a Génesis capítulo 25,
verse 29 to 34.
Versículos 29 al 34.
Then I'll answer the question from Skype.
Y después contesto la pregunta de Skype.
Genesis 25, verse 29 to 34 says, one day when Yaakov had cooked some stew, Esau came in from the open country exhausted and said to Yaakov, please let me gulp down some of that red stuff. I'm exhausted, Yaakov answered. First, sell me your rights as a firstborn. Look, I'm about to die, said Esau. What use to me are my rights as a firstborn? Yaakov said, first swear to me. So he swore to him, thus selling his birthright to Yaakov. And Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. You know what? this still affects us today
¿Sabes qué? Que esto todavía nos afecta hoy en día.
because the children of Yaakov are in the land of Israel,
Porque los hijos de Jacob están en la tierra de Israel
and the children of Esav are in the Gaza Strip.
y los hijos de Esaú están en la franja de Gaza.
So this whole situation still affects us today.
So, esta situación todavía nos afecta hoy en día.
All right, let me just read you guys the question in Spanish.
Ok, deja leer tu pregunta en español.
It was about the firstborn.
Se trataba del primogénito.
Let me just. Where is it? En mi caso, it should be in casa,
You want me to-
Johanna. En mi primogénita
Hold on.
y Israel Eduardo.
Don't
Me-
hurt yourself there, Nemo.
Mi primogenito. I want to hurt Isabel
Where is it?
right here.
Rabbi, en mi caso, Johanna es mi primogénita. Israel Edgardo, mi primogénito. Varón. Ambos deben de ser redimidos y consagrados. Should, being that Johanna is my firstborn daughter and Israel Edgardo is my firstborn son, should they both be redeemed and consecrated?
Sí, señor.
Sí,
Everything first out of the womb. Has to be.
lo primero del vientre, todo lo primero del vientre,
It said everything.
dice todo.
And, huh? Well,
Varón y hembra.
he had Johanna first, and then he had a son after, just like you. Dedicated Brittany first. And then when you finally had Asher 18 years later, you dedicated your son.
Dude, you're an old man.
Okay, any other questions in here? Any questions?
¿Hay otras preguntas? ¿Tiene preguntas? ¿Ah? Tú solo tienes un solo hijo. She only has one son. ¿Ah? Tiene una hija, no hijo. Niña. Entonces ella tiene que ser redimida porque ella fue la primera de tu vientre. Ella fue la primera que nació de tu vientre. Todo lo primero. So, ella viene siendo primera. Si tuviera un hijo, entonces él hubiera sido el primer hijo. So, todo el primero. Después de ellos no se redime.
But you first got to understand the Sabbath first.
Pero tiene que entender el Shabbat primero. Después el entendimiento de
Because you can't dedicate something you don't know what you're dedicating to.
Right. No puedes dedicar algo si no sabes a quién se lo estás dedicando.
All right, let's close in prayer.
Vamos a cerrar en oración.
Thank you, Lord, for your blessings today. Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful time of learning your word and how important our role is. Let us understand our role and how to bless you. In your name, Yeshua. Everybody said, Amen. Shalom, Todo.